All right, I think it's 1 o'clock. We can go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. This will be the first of 3 public forums planned for the Grandview Irrigation and Turf Reduction Project, which is scheduled to start in April of 2023. So about a year from next month, we'll break ground. The next forum will be this Wednesday, the 23rd at 1 o'clock here in the lecture hall. And then we'll have another one in the fall on Friday, November 18th. That one will be from 2 to 4 o'clock, and also will be here in the lecture hall. So now I'd like to introduce Gary Brawley with Gary Brawley Golf Design. And today he'll be presenting the proposed turf reduction project plan for Grandview Golf Course, and also talk about ADWR and the 5th management plan and how that will impact our golf courses, our 7 golf courses. So with that, I'll have Gary come up.
Great, thank you, Todd. My name's Gary Brawley. I'm a golf course architect, member of the American Society of Golf Course Architects, and I've been retained by the rec centers to not just be the golf course architect, but to be the lead consultant for this project, as it entails civil engineering, landscape architecture, irrigation design, and all that. So put together a little presentation. It's only a few minutes, just kind of give you some groundwork, and then we will open it up for question and answer after that. So today, let me get going on this. So the agenda today, I want to talk a little bit about history of golf and water in Arizona and where we are going today. Talk about RCSE West golf, your golf courses and the age of those golf courses, the impact of the ADWR. ADWR is the Arizona Department of Water Resources, which has jurisdiction over your water rights and allocations. Their 5th management plan and RCSE West, and then talk a little bit at the end specifically about the Grandview project. So when we talk about golf in Arizona, obviously we're trying to grow grass in an arid climate and dry climate, and I don't think any of us want our golf courses to look like the picture on the right of your screen, and so we have to use water. But I think there's a common misperception in the public about water use by golf courses. I mean, people drive down the streets, they see our golf courses, they see they're nice and green, but these are per ADWR numbers. Golf used only 1.9% of Arizona's total fresh water withdrawals in 2010. So, golf in Arizona doesn't use a lot of water compared to industrial, those big plants like the Intel plant, the new plant that's going up on the 303. Those guys use a lot of water, they recycle it, but agriculture uses the most water in the state. So with that, the golf industry had a total economic contribution in 2014 of $3.9 billion. So when you put the value of golf to the state economy versus how much water we use, it's a pretty good trade-off. Obviously, ag is a huge deal in Arizona, but we are very good with our water. So a little bit about how does golf, apply this water, and how are we only 1.9%, and how are we different? So, one, our golf course superintendents are very highly trained. The systems they use are highly technical. Your superintendent's water based on ET, which is evapotranspiration. So that's the water that the plant absorbs versus being released. So like in August, we lose more water every day, so he's got to put on more water on the ground. So they're making those calculations daily through their technology and the software they're using. And then so they're able to manage their irrigation times. So unlike the homeowner, including myself, that has my clock scheduled for a run every Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday, or every other day at 7 a.m. to water my grass. Well, that's not how we're watering our golf courses. We're watering them only based on what they need. In today's market, we're staking all of our irrigation using sub-centimeter accuracy GPS equipment. So when we know that throw of that irrigation head is 65 feet, well, it's exactly 65 feet to the next head. I guarantee if we go out on the Grandview Golf Course right now, we have spacings anywhere from 50 to 80 feet. Well, that ends up leading for a lot of wet and dry areas, which are challenging to irrigate. So you have to put more irrigation water out. So part of the irrigation renovation will be this advanced technology and staking from what was done, back in the 1980s. Also, it's pretty common that Rainbird and Toro are the two major manufacturers of irrigation materials in the world, and they use Arizona as a test market. Actually, Rainbird has a plant down in Tucson, so you got a lot of golf guys in the business that are prototyping materials and products, because if we can water in Arizona we got bad water too. We can use the bad water and the technology we have, and if we can keep these golf courses green and as efficiently as we can, then those things can go to the market. So, it tells you something that they're testing those products here in Arizona. Each golf course has its own weather station. So Dan's monitoring the weather daily, specifically on Grandview. We all know that, we could have a storm, 2 miles from here that dumps a half an inch of rain and not a drop hits at Grandview. Well, with these high-tech weather stations that are on the golf courses, he's able to monitor the weather right on his golf course. Because what happens at desert trails may not be the same things that happen at Grandview, and they can adjust their irrigation run times based on that. The other advancement in the technology is individual head control. So right now, Dan turns on a head at the golf course. Dan's your golf course superintendent, I'm sorry. If he turns on the water, for one head, right now, sometimes he's got to turn on 2, 3, 4 heads at a time to water one head. Well, these new systems will have individual head control so that he can monitor the water distribution every head. So a head that's watering a low area maybe needs to run a little bit less because he's got runoff coming into that low area. Where a head that's watering a south-facing slope that needs a little bit more water, he can adjust that one head to the second to throw more water. The best part about this, he can run it from his phone anymore and do it from his house. He can turn heads on, on and off. Another thing that I think it's worth mentioning is we have a new pump station going in. Well, the flow sensors on the pump station are able to, they know that pump station's smart enough now to know what, typical daily flows are going to be. Well, if it starts to spike, a sensor will go off and the superintendent will automatically be notified so that he realizes maybe there's a break. Maybe there's something on. I can shut that system down right away like that so we don't have a lot of water being misused and wasted, because that communication between the pump station and the system says, hey, we're shutting it down. Something's going on. It needs to be investigated. So a lot of technology in the new irrigation systems. So a little bit about the Arizona Department of Water Resources. So in 1980, legislation was passed that the department had to put into place 5 management plans by 2025. And each plan needed to get progressively more aggressive than the previous year for water conservation. So in 1984, that's when the first, I think it was the second management plan went into place that restricted the amount of turf areas that you could have on a golf course. So that's why your desert trails, your newer golf courses are more desert golf courses, more target golf courses, because there was restrictions based on ADWR that if you're pumping groundwater, you had to be restricted to about 90 acres of turf. And this was impactful that even if you just use one drop of groundwater, you had to fall within that restriction. So those golf courses like Trilogy at Estancia, they were eventually going to go to effluent once the effluent plant got up and running, but because they had to use groundwater to start, well, they ended up having to fall into that jurisdiction at that point because they were using groundwater. So that's why the difference. So this management plan that we're going into will have a little bit more effect on the older golf courses. So the 5th management plan is by far the most impactful to the golf industry there is. I'm working with a lot of clubs, just consulting with them. I talk to people at ADWR or are in with meetings with them almost every week right now. Some with attorneys, some not, because this isn't going to be impactful to the golf industry. So the 5th management plan has been in draft since 2019. There's been 7 public meetings, and I've attended every one of those. For instance, in 2021, one of the public meetings had over 500 people in attendance because that's the impact that this is going to have. So currently, there's no plan for the fifth management plan. There was legislation on the House floor just late last year that did not get passed because right now the legislation's only that they have to do 5 management plans. So they tried to put one in to do a 6th in 2035, but that didn't pass. So right now, what's happening in this 5th management plan is what we have to live with for a while. But with that said, I don't think the 6 would be any more helpful to us than the 5th is going to be. So the schedule for the 5th management plan is it's going to be adopted this summer, and then we'll go into kind of in the shadows for 2 years, and then in January 1st, 2025, it'll be implemented. So you'll have to begin to get your golf courses into compliance with the reduced amount of water. So that's kind of what's driven some of the conversations. That this is a life expectancy, and Todd, I think this was going up on the website, right? So I sent a couple things to Todd to put on the website Friday. So this is one, and then the economic impact and the water stuff that gave you those numbers is there. So if anyone wants to look at that. But this is the good thing. This is put together by the Allied Associations, and it just talks about the life expectancy of golf course features and the parts of the golf course. And you can see here that the irrigation systems, are really, 10 to 30 years. I know that's a long lifespan, but, I think the shorter end was the older golf courses. And as we're moving with these newer technologies, we're going to be able to expand those life expectancies out. So you can see 10 to 30 years. Well, here's your golf courses at Sun City West with, Pebblebrook being 43 years old, Stardust 43, Grandview 38, Echo Mesa 37, Trail Ridge 34. So these are all, kind of pushing that life expectancy on that irrigation system. And if we get into situations with water, we have to take every drop we can and manage it appropriately. So it's important to, have good systems that can get that water out there. We want to make sure we keep these golf courses in good condition for you guys. So specifically, with Todd and Dan, we've met with ADWR twice just in the last 6 months, just to talk to them about the unique situation that RCSE West has with the 7 golf courses and the age of the golf courses. And there's a unique thing that you guys have here is there is a pipe that connects all your golf courses. Most people don't know that, but you have the ability to move water throughout your entire golf courses. So we're working on trying to get a rule from ADWR that sees Sun City West as one golf course and not 7 individual golf courses, because that will help you in your water conservation. So there was a legacy golf course grant that was available, which we applied for, and just in the last 2 weeks received notification that we received that grant money. It's a little bit, but it helps. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's a little bit when you look at the scale of these projects. But we went and got that grant, so we have to use those grants for water conservation efforts on the golf courses. We can't combine them into one and use them all on one. We have to use them per golf course. So we got that grant, and we're going to start working on implementing that, and we have 2 years to use that money. So that was a good win for us. And then, I wrote that we have conditional approval to put all the properties into one. So we're waiting on the final, but that's going to be a huge success for that. So let's talk a little bit about Grandview specifically. So we've probably been working on this for a year, Grandview, just talking about the numbers, because we knew this. Again, the 5th management plan was in draft for a couple of years now, so we've been monitoring this and seeing where it's going. So Todd and Darren brought me in, and I've known them for a long time. I've been in the business in Arizona for 27 years, so I've been around a while. But we were having those conversations and just trying to stay ahead of time. I mean, anything we do anymore is it's not something we can do overnight. Like, these are big, significant impacts that we're going to have on the golf courses. So, commend Todd and Dan for being ahead of this. There's still golf courses out there that don't really believe this is going to be real. But I asked that question. I asked that question to ADWR. I said, so what happens if the golf course calls your bluff? I said, what happens, says, hey, it's our water, it's our pumps, we're going to pump it. Well, I didn't get an email back from my contacts at ADWR. I got an email back from their attorney, and he said, and he gave me all the legislature code, but it could be up to a $10,000 a day fine for misuse of water, of groundwater. So, that's, and they shut you down. So the rule is that they would have the ability to shut you down from pumping until that's remedied. Well, that remedy in our world doesn't take 1-2 weeks. It takes 6-8 months. And if we get into a position where we don't have water to water our greens, if we don't water our greens for 3 days, 4 days in August, they're gone. And now we don't have greens for you in the spring or in the fall. So it's a big deal. So we looked at several different design studies and impacts on turf conversion. There's no way, we've looked at all kinds of different options as an industry of what we can do to reduce turf. And it's not just turf, it's reduced water consumption. For instance, you use about 6.2 acre feet on overseeded grass. Well, an acre foot of water is about 352,000 gallons of water. So you use like 6.2 acre feet of water on every acre of turf. So that's and to put that acre foot number, that's about enough. 1 acre foot is about enough water for 10 individuals for a year. So that's how much water we're talking about. Well, if we're trying to find ways to reduce turf, we have to be pretty creative on that. So we did a couple studies to get to where we are today. Some of the things that we talked about was, maintaining turf from tee to green. My experience as the golf course architect was then the clientele, the golfers, that's important, right? We didn't want to desertize this golf course completely. What was the minimal amount of impact we can? So this graphic that's on the left is or will be on the website. It was sent Friday night. I just finished it, updated it on Friday, but after our meeting. So you'll be able to look at that a little closer. So we've maintained all the turf from tee to green for playability and maintenance. We took into consideration the primary playing areas, trying to keep those landscape areas, as far away as we can, in the primary landing area. So we may be a little narrower up near the tee, but where we get to where, your balls are being hit, and I put circles, I draw a lot of circles, a lot of lines to look at those things. I reviewed those with Dan and Todd, kind of showed them those types of things that we're looking at. So, we paid attention to those when we were doing this. We started looking at distances off property lines and just what it would do to do the entire property at 15 feet, at 25 feet, at 45 feet, at 60 feet. Where did that impact you, and how does that get you? So we looked at all those variables of where that is. We also recognize that the perimeters are the low priority on the golf course. All your high priority are your tees, greens, and fairways, right? And as you get away from that center line of play, that's where maintenance starts to, just thin out. It's a manpower issue. It's not always maintenance. It's manpower and hours and operating costs that we all have to take into account as we're looking into that. So can we take in some of those lower priority turf areas? Like I'm thinking like up on 5, that big massive area, or the back behind 13, back behind the bathroom and the green back there, big areas that aren't really even in play. You'll see that there are some areas we actually still have turf on the outside of the cart path. Because I look at the spacing and where the balls are going to hit and the length of shot coming in, and hey, we need to maybe push that turf out a little bit. The other thing is it removes the irrigation heads from property lines. I know, I hear it everywhere. It's not just here, it's all over the country. When we have heads on property lines, the heads are ruining the wrought iron or the paint. So, this concept removes those heads and that throw from the property lines, which is a good thing. The other thing we did is we took We set up the lines originally, and then we give them to the irrigation consultant, and he laid out his heads, and then we came back in and massaged the lines to help match heads. Again, it's about water efficiencies. That's the ultimate goal. So we're able to use the head spacing to be as efficient as we can on those lines of delineation. And now there's some areas that we looked at, and I'm like, man, I got to keep that out there because thinking of playability. Like sometimes it may have made more sense for me to push that line out and add another big head instead of 5 pop-up heads. I could add that turf area another 15 feet out, and then I get 1 big head, and I eliminate 5 heads, but now I've increased that playable area. So all those things, we went through this, with a fine-tooth comb, hole by hole, head by head, as we went through this. The other thing that we did in this plan is we put an emphasis on the road crossings for the community impact. Obviously the landscaping and the turf conversion inside the golf course will be most seen by the homeowners and the golfers. But what about the street fronts? What about along Meeker? What about along some of those northern boundaries where every single person that drives to their home may not be a golfer but drives by that street front? Well, we want to make sure that's as appealing as we can. So we actually, per the direction of Todd and Dan, increased some of the density of plant material in those areas, added some trees, to beautify those corridors more so than just leave them out. They're out there for the most part. I can never say nowhere's out of play because I'm a golfer. I've hit it everywhere. But for the most part, those are far enough behind greens, that they're not going to be in play. So we could go a little denser in landscape area. Off the back of the greens, we're probably 60 to 70 feet before we get to a landscape area on that. So that's kind of the design part. A little bit about the project. So one of the questions that's going to come up is, we've already bid this project. We're a year out from starting, as Todd said. That's the state of our business right now. We're a year and a half out for contractor availability. When you talk of a project of this magnitude, to get those qualified contractors in, we invited 4 to bid and only 3 submitted bid, and the 4th one sent us a notice that they were already too busy for next year. So that's just the state of our industry. So that's why, some people are like, well, why did you bid it so early? Because that's where we are. If we, and I believe too that when we review these bids, that we're going to get the better pricing than we would had we even waited 6 months to bid this. So we've already done that. The new golf course pump station was already purchased. We bid that out. It was purchased. It's in production, and that's a 22-week build. So it takes them 22 weeks to build the new pump station. They actually build it in their plant, assemble it, test it, then take it back apart and ship it to us. And then they put it together again out here in Arizona. So that's scheduled for August 2022 to replace a pump station. And the reason we did that too is that is a long lead time product, and we need the water. We always have to have water. And you didn't want to start up a new system with the old pump station. So we got that going ahead of time so that we could, when we start the irrigation renovation, we're able to tie in right to the new pump station and what we call carry the water with us. So construction will actually start on the back 9. So one more thing, the landscape bids are out on the street right now, and they are due April 1st. And then we will review those and start working down those ways with the community. So golf course closures. So right now we're scheduled to close the back 9 on April 3rd. The contractors will come in, they start installing the main line, which is the distribution pipe. It's large pipe coming out of that pump station. I think we're at 18-inch pipe. So this is a big pipe. We're running 25,000 gallons a minute through this system. So high volume, high pressure. So we're going to start that on back 9, April 3rd. The conversations we were having was, to keep the front 9 open on the clubhouse side, driving range. The restaurant's going to stay open. So we are, that was the decision. It worked good too because the pump station's right there on 18T. So we're able to tie in there and go. And then the front 9 will close mid to end of May. Depends on how fast they're moving. We don't want to stop production because you'll have had a contract based on a certain number of weeks. So it'll be 8 to 10 weeks from when they start to when they cross the road. So they'll actually bore underneath all the roads, so there won't be any road disruption. They'll bore under Meeker. That's 12-inch pipe that goes under Meeker, so they'll actually bore that whole crossing. Those drawings have been done by the civil engineer and are ready to go to the county for a permit and get those all done so we can no trenching through the roads. And then right now the plan is for the golf course to open fall of 2023. And one thing I've talked to Dan and Todd about is I encourage those guys to be aggressive on turf cultural practices while we're closed. I mean, we still got to maintain the greens. We still have to keep water on. That's one of our challenges when you do renovation projects like this is we're closing pipe, but we're opening up new pipe. We still have greens that need to be watered, so we have to manage all that. We have a lot of cross connects, temporary cross connects into old main line to new main line so that we can keep water on the rest of the golf course. They're still having to maintain that. We're okay about a week down. We'll be down about a week on the hole. They're pretty quick about getting the greens back up. But water's moving. So the bids are, again, they're qualified contractors. They all three contractors their resumes are 500, 600, 700 golf courses. So these are highly qualified members of the Golf Course Builders Association of America that do this every day and get around the golf course. So that's all I had. Todd and I are here for questions, and we can go from there.
Do you have the individual drawings for the holes? Will you pull those up?
I don't have them. They're available on the website.
Okay. Well, yeah, I looked on the website. So, some of these things, in terms of the plans, I live on number 6. And in looking at the drawings, it's looking like you're putting the tree literally right on my property. And the tree's going to end up being 8 feet tall. So I think a number of people I've talked to had concerns about the views of the golf course being impacted. I already have 2 trees that are in front of my lawn. That's fine. But in looking at the description of the plant and stuff, I looked at the diameter of Expectancy. If it ends up being right on the edge of the golf course, it's going to overhang the golf course.
Yeah,
So is that what the plan is, or are we going to set it back far enough?
the plan's really like.
I realize it's probably approximate.
Yeah, so every plant will be staked in the field, and then Dan and I will walk every one of them and move them, and we pay attention to sight lines, and sometimes we'll look at it like if you're on the tee side and your view to greens, we pay attention to all of that when we're in the field staking. So.
I have basically the same question.
Todd, do we have questions at the mic and we're recording?
I got the microphone set up there. I basically have the same question on 7. And 2 things. When I pulled up the plans, some of the legends don't correspond to the plans, so I can't really tell what's there. Or what's proposed. The second thing is that some of them are going to be 8 to 10 feet tall, right directly between the fairway. All my plants are 2 feet or less. I don't have small plants, tuberoses, things like that to keep them low so I can see the view. So can we modify or can we affect what's going to go out there?
Yes.
This is just a proposed plan at this point right now, and we are sensitive to the homeowners that live on the golf course. The last thing that we want to do is go out and review either with a plan that's going to go 5, 6 feet, or you treat it, you didn't have to, or you want to.
So what will be the process where we can review or look to see what's going there before it's planted? I mean, I'm a snowbird. I'm gone half of the year, and I just like to be involved in that review.
I think it's just just send your comments of what lot you are, your address, and we can pull it up and we can look at what the planting is behind those and make adjustments. So I mean, it's funny. I've done this on other golf courses, and you know, we were staking, and we had a tree at one spot, and the resident was like, "I don't want that tree," and the other neighbor was like, "Well, I'll take that tree."
Right.
You know, so but we're not, like Todd said, we're very sensitive. I mean, you have a premium that's on your house, you have a view. We understand that, so we're not going to just dump those things in there and say, "Nope, I forget you." So we're sensitive to that. So I think, you know, maybe there's a way to set up a comment thing that you can review them and put comments. We can adjust that. We can pull plants back, put them somewhere. I mean, we have a lot of walls like along Grand. We can take plants and put them over there. So
Yeah, I just would like to know what the process is for doing that. As I said, on the website, I looked up there, the legends don't seem to correspond to some plants. I don't know if it's just due to the resolution on the website or whatever, but I can't tell for about half the plants what they are based on the legends. So,
what hole you were on 7?
I'm on 7.
On left or right side?
I'm on the south
North,
side.
south side?
Right next to the green.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just making a note.
No, it's okay. Is the irrigation planning going to include irrigation for some of these newly planted trees and some of the existing trees?
Yep.
I know we lost a number of trees in a windstorm here 3 or 4 years ago, and many of them were replaced, but I've seen some of them dying already because there's no water to them.
Yes, we have. So we have 3 valves in the landscape areas, one for new shrubs, one for existing trees, because they take a different amount of water, and one for new trees. So we'll be able to manage the flows on each one of those. Every new plant that gets put in there has drip irrigation.
Okay, good,
So-
thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, just so you know, get sensitive with this microphone. It does work. You just got to get a little closer, and that way the fine folks at home can hear what you have to say. Thank you.
My concern is, I'm on number 8, and it's a pond, and it doesn't seem like in your plans at all that there's anything to do with the bank, and there is a lot of erosion already with the grass on that particular bank, and it's sloughing, and so I'm not seeing any, like, grass being, you know, the pond kind of grass, or like in Echo Mesa, they've done the rocks.
So that's what we're doing, the rocks on the landscape side of those. We're fixing that landscape edge, the edge between really from the lake to the house. We're fixing those edges now. We're going to be in there with that equipment. So the plan actually show we're going to flatten that slope out, reseal that lake edge, put the riprap just like they did at Echo Mesa on those edges. So we're taking care of, you know, not necessarily on 8, not the turf side right now, but we're taking care of the golf side or the landscape side already.
Okay, but right now, we just have grass, and I mean, when the rains start, there's not listing anything.
We're using bigger rock over there so that it doesn't erode.
I think you're referring to Echo Mesa on hole number 8, where you have the larger stuff.
Right, right.
That's the application that we would use on the lakes over there.
Okay, because right now, like say, that number 8 is sloughing really badly.
And that way, that prevents erosion too, going with the larger rock.
Okay.
My question is, what are you going to do with the older trees that are there? I'm on 17, third swing, I'm not a golfer. And,
So towards the green.
and my position is that's a beautiful old tree. It works real well for sun. It doesn't get much water.
It gets a lot of water.
Well, it does when it's on. Yeah, and it sprays onto the tree trunk.
Yeah.
But my question is, are you going to remove that?
No.
Okay. Are you going to maintain it? Because it's had some pretty bad wind damage over the years.
So to the early question, we're irrigating that. So we're running, like, there's going to be 6 drip valves for every existing
Okay.
tree. And there's going to be its own controller, so they can turn that on, because that water, those trees are used to surface water.
Right.
You know, because that's how it's gotten. It gets, 10 minutes a day in the summertime. So it's just a little bit below. The roots are really shallow. So we've added the drip system to all those trees to be able to put water on those existing trees.
And my second question is, how far in, okay, on 17, on the third shot, for lack of better words, asphalt driveway, how far up are you coming with gravel?
All the way to the
Property line?
property.
All the way to the property edge and out.
Okay, go ahead.
I think we're looking, on average, it's gonna be about 25 feet in on the entire golf course from the front. On average, there may be some holes that are, maybe go 30 feet. But that would start at the property edge and work out towards the golf course.
So will it be convenient, or no, will it be easy for golfers to drive golf carts on the rock, or are you going to try to make sure they stay on the asphalt?
Well, we're looking at that right now. I think in the beginning, because that rock is gonna be, that approach ground is gonna be soft. And we don't want to drive it in it, especially with the new plants. We don't want to drive it on the new plants and destroy the drip irrigation. So for a while, we're gonna tell them they must stay on the park.
Okay, because yesterday I had them over into my big rock into my crushed rock. You know, my dog goes nuts, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Are you going to put any other trees there? I'd like to know that.
We're going to do our best. We can't,
No, I understand.
Golfers are awful.
I know.
driving Carts.
I know, buckshot works well. No, kidding aside. Are you going to put any other trees over in that area? Because I was just getting ready to plant 3 trees.
Yeah, I don't.
I have to look at that area.
Okay, that's fine.
But if we may have one that's going to come from 7, we can put over that.
Say what?
I said we may have one tree that's going to come off of 7. We'll move
Oh, there you go. All right, thank you.
Now?
As a golfer, I like Grandview's layout. I think it's the most challenging layout we have here. But over the years, it's 34 years old or something like that. I think it's in 38. In addition to advances in irrigation technology, I know there's been a lot of new seed developments for turf that require less water, that don't go necessarily dormant in the wintertime and things like that. Because playing all our courses, the only part that's maintained in the season is the fairway areas. We don't do any watering, irrigation, and rough. So we have no rough. And with elevated greens, you just go off the green and then you roll 40 yards away because it's like hard pan or something. I mean, it's just, there's no turf there. Is there any plan to do anything with the fairways to update the seed and the kind of grassing that we have and make that, with all this work, look better?
So there is a new variety of Bermuda grass that really only got put in last summer. Was our first summer really with some big trials of it. Allegedly they're saying is 30% less water. I don't believe it's 30%. They'll sell you anything, right? So, but the good thing is we've got one club has it on one of their fairways, and he's got moisture sensors in it, so we're able to monitor that. It's a variety called Tiff Tough. So it's did you have it on some of your tees? So they put it on some of the tees at Stardust last summer to try it. So they're trying it too, to start to see. Regardless, this project you would want to do before that, because the damage the contractor does going through there, you want to do this before you would consider turf conversions.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, I wasn't thinking of the overseed.
no, this is
So this would be a permanent year-round
right.
turf?
So the guys that have it are they didn't overseed it this year, to see, because it does. And I just saw some this morning on a tee that wasn't overseeded, and it's pretty green. Mm-hmm. Whereas what your roughs look like, they're starting to come back right now. So it supposedly keeps its color longer and then comes out of dormancy quicker. It all depends on weather. If we get the hard frost early December, it's going to shut down. This year our hard frosts were in January, so it's a matter of that. And it's I think the trials are still out there. I'm working at McCormick Ranch also, and we put it there on 2 holes, and he didn't overseed it as well, about playability of it, in the winter, and divots. So there's nothing to heal, the divots. So the Bermuda's not growing; it's just staying color. So My hesitancy right now on it is in the wintertime, not being able to heal from divots unless we overseed it. Now, the benefit of it would be the water savings in the summer when we need to put the bulk of the water down. If we can save 25% of that water,
That's a big deal.
you know, that's going to be a valid thing. Because I honestly think in my lifetime, you know, I'm going to see a 6 management plan and it's going to be a ding or two. So, you know, it's there, but that's where we're going. I mean, we're trying those things. It's Greyhawk has it on the driving range. A bunch of guys have it in small areas. Westbrook Village, David put it on one of his driving range tees. I mean, you guys have it on some of your tees here. Sun City put it on some of their par 3 tees. So there's a bunch of guys seeing what that grass is going to do. But regardless, you would want to do, you know, your irrigation system's aging, and you know we need to be looking at that and you know do that anyways. I would not let you put in new grass and then 2 years later go tear it up to put in new irrigation.
The other question along with that is there any push to go to using recycled water from the state? You think that, I mean, I've seen that in other communities.
It's a matter of getting it.
Yeah.
You know, I think you guys looked at it a while ago. I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, we have that interconnecting pipeline that used to run over to the plant, water plant over there. We did try this it's already been 28, 29 years ago that we did try to bring that over to the golf course. Much luck with that. It wasn't very clean water, but created more problems for us. We don't have that delivery system in place anymore. We do have the pipeline, so we'd have to get a delivery system and bring that over from the river bottom and bring it into Sun City West. Now, the other problem is we have that pipeline, that interconnecting pipeline, which was built when the community was put together. So that's aging, and we do have problems with that. We only use that when we need to, like in an emergency. If we have a well pump that goes down and we need to transfer water from one golf course to the other, that's when we use that pipeline. But other than that, we just let it set. We don't want to.
The reason I ask is you're redoing irrigation. A club I belonged to in the past was forced to use recycled water, and it worked out that they would use it on all the fairways, but the greens, because of the kind of water that you get with that, they used fresh water, if you will, or processed water for greens, and then the fairways could tolerate the sodium or whatever the other, you know, materials are in that recycled water.
Right, and that's kind of the opposite out here in the Southwest. With our soils, we have very heavy soils, so putting that kind of quality water on our grass would not be good. It would we'd have that sodium build up, and we'd end up losing a lot of grass. Now on the greens, would be able to tolerate that because they're sand based, and you leach those through, so that water would be in and out of there real quick. But it would be a very big problem for us to put that quality water on our fairways.
And I think it's worth, Gary, to your question, your water allocation from the state, you'd have to be completely effluent dependent. You know, because I said, as long as you have one drop of groundwater in your system, you meet their requirements. Now, they do have provision in there that you get water credit. You get like a 40% credit for using effluent water, so you get to use a little bit more water. But unless you're completely independent of groundwater, you still end up having to fall under that jurisdiction. And the state has hired a guy. All he's doing is verifying turf quantities on golf courses.
Well, but from the way that we had to lay out the irrigation system, you had to have central piping with fresh water go to greens and then different piping go, you know,
Yeah,
as long as you're doing it.
we don't need to do that in Arizona because of the sand base and the Bermuda grass tolerant of that.
On Grandview hole 13.
Yep.
Couple of things, wondering, are the golfers still going to be able to play right to the property edge?
No, every property edge has landscape on it now.
So if you have that and they get in, I'm assuming it's going to be like off Deer Valley where it's a sand turf, or is it going to be stone? Is it going to be sand?
It's
It's going to be the decomposed granite, quarter minus, and that's what we have over.
That's what we have over at Trail Ridge, Deer Valley, and,
Right.
and to a lesser degree at Desert Trails.
So they're
And
not
so it
supposed
is playable, so
It is
you
playable.
can play out of that. Now, with it being new, I mentioned it's going to be kind of fluffy, so we might want to wait until that firms up a little bit, and then, you know, you could adopt the local rules, and if you're in there, you can drop out of there without penalty and drop back into the grass area. But
Have they looked at any alternatives? I've talked to people that are on Deer Valley, and where the wind blows across the road, it's wide open. They said they just get blasted with sand when we get the high winds coming out of the west and northwest.
Yeah.
And 13's got a big open area where there's a double fairway and a
Right.
pond where the wind just comes blowing across.
A lot of that stays turf in between 13 and 14 there.
Yeah, there's quite a bit
Yeah.
of sand in there.
So yeah, that's where, you know, we have that challenge of playability.
Yeah.
The 1/4" minus is pretty commonly used. It does get firm. It's going to look like dirt. For you guys that are on the golf course, you know, it's going to look like dirt.
Right.
You know, we just pray that we get a 9 inches of rain in August like we did this year,
Back it down.
because it packs it down, and it literally it's firm. And you can play, now you get the old scuff marks on the bottom of your club, and that's why that's the Arizona rule. We get 15 clubs because we all got our desert club, right? So that's yeah, that's right. So, you know, we're trying to, like, if we put in 3/4" rock, it's not playable.
Right.
So now it becomes OB.
Right.
So now it's a stroke and distance. You know, that's a whole different, I mean, it starts to, it's
Where do you
trying to
start
get
it?
that
Where do you start it?
balance.
Where do you stop
So, you know, they used it in Sun City, you know, on their Willow Creek and Willowbrook that they did. They used the 1/4" minus there. You know, that's why I think, you know, we don't have big vast area. There are some back there in that corner, but it's.
Are there gonna be new drawings that come out? Because the resolution, like one of the other gentlemen talked about, you can't tell what the plants are. I can look
Yeah,
at my property.
we can figure something out, so.
Or what I've worked a lot with a design like this before. They usually will circle a grouping because they're in groups. You have everything in groups. So all you do is circle it and you write down what it is.
Yeah,
like 20 of these plants with a circle around it.
Yeah,
17 of these.
The
plants.
landscape architect that did that originally did a golf course a few years ago like that, but it was a nightmare. So they actually, I mean, it's easier for them to do that than it is to itemize every single plant on that. So,
Right.
but we can figure out, I mean, it's a scaled PDF, so we just got to find out a better way to get that.
Yeah, because you can't tell. I can't.
Yeah.
Everything in front of my wall, I can't tell what's there.
I do know there's a couple hard copy sets that they were going to put out in the pro shop.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know,
Another thing is, wouldn't it be correct or the right thing to do for Sun City West to send out letters in the mail to all the property owners? I just, out of the whim, found out about it yesterday. Had no idea that this was going to happen. Is there no concern about property owners not knowing about it? If you don't go on the internet, or if you don't talk to somebody, you don't know it. This place would have been filled, I'll bet, if everybody knew it.
No, we can certainly do something like that to get more information out to the residents that live on Grandview and the members that play Grandview. We've had in our Facebook and e-news and stuff like that's been out for, Katie, how long have we been posting that? Probably a month, yeah. So we're trying to get that information out. And when I'm out and about on the golf courses, I'm talking to people. I met with a group of homeowners from Grandview and kind of walked them through what we're going to do.
I talked to my three neighbors, and none of them knew anything about it, including myself. So
Well, that's why we're having this forum. We're going to have another one on
I
Wednesday,
think
and
they
then
should mail letters to every homeowner.
okay, and then we're going to have another one in the fall, and then if we need a fourth forum after the first of the year, a couple of months before we actually start the project, we'll certainly do that.
Okay.
But no, our intention is to get the word out and let everybody know what we're doing on Grandview Golf Course and what it's going to look like. You know, our goal with this project is to keep the golf course playable, okay? Not have very little impact to the homeowners that live around the golf course too. And then, of course, the big one is to conserve water. And, you know, it's mandated by the state that we can only use so much water on that golf course in 2025. So those are our three goals that we want to do. We want to meet that water restriction. We want to keep the homeowners happy. And that's why when I talk about the 25 feet on the perimeters, that, you know, you'll be able to sit on your patio and look out, and you're still going to have a view of grass. That's not going to change. And then as far as playability of the golf course, you know, we're sensitive to that too, because I know a lot of people play Grandview because of it being wall-to-wall turf, and a lot of them don't like to play Trail Ridge or Deer Valley because they don't like hitting out of the desert. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep the golf course intact and keep it as playable as possible.
The new pumping station that's being built and designed, do you know if that's going to be a frequency drive pump station?
yes.
VFD,
Yep.
yes it is.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
The pumping station that they're
Yeah,
building.
He wanted
they're
to
building
know-
a new pumping station, and the new technology, there's frequency drives that you can monitor the water flow, the pressure, and you can adjust and it saves you a lot of electricity, plus
Yeah, it
it's
does.
We have-
better on the pumps
So
too.
we actually go even further than that. We actually put a jockey pump on the skid
Okay,
to
good.
keep the system primed when it's not running.
Yep.
So we're not running the big,
No, you just
big,
circulate, yeah.
we have three
Keep
pumps. I
pressure.
think there's 3 pumps on there, two big pumps, 3 large ones and the jockey. So when the system's not running, the big pump's shut down,
Yep.
the jockey kicks on, and
Yep.
it just keeps the system primed, for.
Yep, I'm
so,
familiar
yeah,
with
we
that.
go even further than that.
And then all of our 7 distribution pumps are VFD.
Okay, good,
Yeah, and we changed those out several years ago, so we're there.
good move. Thanks.
So given that you're going to try and treat all 7 of the golf courses as one, will you have to do any additional turf removal projects for something like Pebblebrook?
Yes, we're looking at Pebblebrook, Stardust, and Echo Mesa. Those are our 4 wall-to-wall golf courses.
Okay, so eventually everything's going to go to a desert course.
Yes, a little bit on each golf course, and I'm thinking it was 17 acres over at Pebblebrook that we needed to remove to be in compliance in 2025, and it was 11 acres over at Echo Mesa, and then I believe it was only 6 acres at Stardust, so very little. And with that acreage, we're able to pick that up on the street fronts and road crossings alone, and may not even have to get into the perimeters.
Okay, so the need is to have all of that done by 2025.
Well, you can file for an extension, which we've done, which would take us to 2030. So we do have time to do that. So that 2025 is not a drop dead date yet. And so we
Yeah,
do have
so-
some time to be in compliance.
So the state actually will give you a variance you have to have kind of saying, you're okay. Saying, by this year we're doing this year we're doing this. We started this project at 65, 70 acres of turf reduction. Then we found out we may be getting that, which was significant because a lot of the tees ended up being out. That whole area behind 1 green to 2 tee, that was all original, in one of the very early concepts was all taken out. So we were fortunate we scaled this back when we started looking at it as a whole, all the properties, and being able to still take some out of Pebblebrook and Stardust. Can we reduce the impact of Grandview? So that's what got us down, closer to the 40 acres. So, yes, sir.
I'm on number 7, and to provide a little better location, I have 3 eucalyptus trees growing right back of my lot. First of all, I understand you're not going to remove any trees because that big eucalyptus tree is in very poor shape. I'm not an arborist, but it sheds like eucalyptus always does. And I'm just curious as to whether you're going to leave those 3 trees there. The 2 of them are in pretty good shape, but that one is awful. It hasn't been trimmed in years. I've been there 15 years, never seen it trimmed.
Okay. I know that as we go through this process, when we're putting in desert and putting some new trees in and plants and like that, I think we'll take advantage of that time and also take out any trees that don't look good.
Okay.
Okay. A lot of those eucalyptus trees over there at Grandview, they're 50, 60 years old probably, and they're just kind of worn out. So
That's the biggest one.
Yeah.
I assume that, and maybe I shouldn't, that this whole process, you've also given some thought to the maintenance vehicles going up and down, because they don't stick to the path, the golf cart path. They don't. They drive right along the walls that I've got a wall, my neighbor does, and the next one has one. But they create their own. And if you're planting in those areas where they are, it's going to be an interesting challenge between you and the maintenance vehicles. Now, I know you can say, well, I can control the maintenance people. Well, just look for additional.
We probably have more control over the maintenance vehicles than we do the golfers.
You're going to create some more maintenance problems, that's all I'm saying. They just use the path. And I think what they do.
They're just trying to get out of the way of play.
Yeah, they don't want to hold up play, so they're just along the edge of the walls.
Yeah, like you said, that's the bottom line. They're just trying to get from one hole to the other, and sometimes that's the quickest way if there's carts parked on, or they're trying to stay out of people that are hitting shots out of the fairways. They're going to try
Well,
to
they're going to have a
avoid
new
them.
experience if you've got a tree or a bush or whatever there.
But we still have to keep like 15 feet off that property line because Cox has their stuff back there. So, that's laying on top of the ground. So, you have a lot of, power and stuff that, the old way, they just put it in the back of it. So you have to stay a little bit off your walls to allow them to get in to your boxes and stuff back there. So, but that's not, I'm not in charge of the maintenance guy.
I have a wall there back there. It's one of the low walls. And right on that wall is water, every 10, 12 feet. Are you going to remove that?
Yeah, all those pop-ups along the perimeter, and I don't know how many we have, hundreds or thousands around the golf course. Those will all be coming out.
Okay.
And so that's going to prevent that, putting that desert landscape in there is going to prevent that water from hitting your wall or your fence or whatever you have in that area, or actually going onto your property. So that's going to be a big help. And then with removing those heads, that's going to help us out on the maintenance because they're always in need of repair. They're always clogged or they don't work, they're broken.
I know.
So that's really going to be a plus for us.
I've turned it into 3 or 4 times on some of those back there.
Yeah, so we're excited about just getting rid of the pop-ups around the perimeter.
Okay. I've never seen them run. Do they run at night?
They do. They could come on at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Are you going to plant new trees? I noticed you don't have eucalyptus in there, but you do have Texas ebony.
So we're now required under this 5th management plan to follow the Department of Water Resources low water use plant list. And so they don't have eucalyptus is not a low water use plant. So,
okay.
So all those plants have to follow, because we're a groundwater user, have to follow that. So the things like bougainvillea, that are high water use, those things aren't on our plan. So then
I have a Texas ebony in my front yard, and let me just give you some advice. Don't use it. You won't find anybody who's willing to trim it, by the way. The thing is so thorny up in that canopy that if you get up there, you're going to come down, you're going to be a bloody mess. The guy charges me $200 extra just because it's a Texas ebony to thin it. So if you're using a Texas ebony, don't put it up back there, back on my property, please. I'm just
you don't have to make
all those pods and everything else are just an absolute disaster. Yeah.
One thing with the plant material, we're really looking at putting in plant material that uses very little water, of course, and very little maintenance. Because with our staff levels that we have now on our golf courses, we don't want to put things in that's where we have to go out there and constantly trim every week or every month.
Yeah.
So we're really taking a hard look at that. So.
So
yeah,
like
that's
the
other thing,
sage,
too.
we're not using like Texas Ranger, which gets to be this high. We're using the smaller one that only gets to be like 2 or 3 feet high. So the things like that, some of the grasses.
My Texas ebony is 25 to 30 feet tall.
Yeah.
So
I'm talking about shrubs.
Yeah, and it rains those pods every time the wind comes up, and I'm just saying on a maintenance basis, if you have any, and I wasn't able to, by the way, read that maintenance plan or the landscaping plan, but are you planning on putting bushes like on the front along my wall? Okay.
No, because we have to keep I think it's 12 feet off the back of the property line clear anyways.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, we wouldn't put any trees or any plants that would encroach into your property. They're going to be offset a little bit in the desert area.
Well, I just to this other man's point, I think we should have some process where we can see what's going to happen in 2 months or 3 months or whenever you're going to plant it, because it's one thing to read those, which I can't and don't read with a plant, where these plants are going to go, but I'm not joining up with, well, what's going to be there and what's going to be there.
Okay, and we will have that coming out. Right now, I'm going to have some larger maps that you can read that will be in the pro shops, and these first set of maps will show you where the turf is coming out. So it'll give you a good idea based
Okay.
on where you live. You can see what's behind your house.
And when are those going to be available?
I'm going to try and get those out next week.
Okay.
Okay, and then the second phase of that would be mapping, showing the vegetation and showing what kind of plants and how many are going to be in those areas.
Okay. All right.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Any other questions? There we have one.
Thank you, Todd. And Gary, can you just do me a favor? Can you back up like maybe 3 slides where you were talking about the age of our courses and the acreage? There you go. So as you can see there, I mean, this is, I guess, from the water conservation. This is something that we have to do. This isn't really an option for us. So when it comes to the 5th management plan in 2025, this is what the state of Arizona is requiring of its water users that use groundwater. So this is an attempt to basically get in compliance with what we really, really need to do. And as you can see there, you'll see a lot of our courses and the acreage that we're really dealing with. And so Mr. Brawley has taken his skills and putting it to test here as far as finding out what's playable and continuing to make Grandview the wonderful golf course that it really, really is. So kudos to him. What I'm hearing today is that you'd like to see a little bit more clarity when it comes to the particular holes that you live on. And I think, Todd, we have, I think, PDF files per each hole. And that we can put on the internet pretty quickly. And so you'll be able to bring it up by hole, kind of see what you're really dealing with as far as that goes. We can work on that. Mr. O'Hara and the pro shops will hopefully have very soon some foam core mountings of the entire project so you can kind of see, we get the word out. I mean, we get thousands of golfers playing in our pro shop, so that will help get the word out. And we can certainly do little postcard mailings to any and all properties contiguous to the golf course. That's easy for us. So a couple of things I want to just really touch on here as far as your residencies and your owners here is I would consider yourself very, very lucky. When I first applied for this job here, I spent a week at Arizona Department of Water Resources because I knew this was coming. And accepting a job as a general manager here, I didn't know Todd Patty. I was very, very fearful, like who is the superintendent and who works here? Because this is a nightmare. There are golf courses in the state of Arizona that are over 200 acres. To remove over 100 acres of someone's surroundings is a formidable challenge. We're in pretty good shape here. And Mr. Brawley has done work in this country and others, but I think one of the more recent ones, at least that I'm personally familiar with, that Mr. Brawley has actually worked on and designed is Willow Creek. It's about 10 minutes from here in Sun City. When was that? When did that go down?
2018.
So a few years ago, right, this same concept was put on the earth. And for a quick 10-minute drive, if you want to walk the parking lot at Willow and look around to see what that landscaping actually looks like, it's there with a 3-year history. So you get to see the plant styles, the type, the setting, and what it really potentially is going to look like as far as better than a PDF version or anything like that. It's real. And that would be one of the things that I would recommend doing. And again, we heard you loud and clear, and we will make sure that our webpage is up and going for you for usable stuff. And if you need anything, contact us. We'll get you. We've got it all at our hands, our fingertips, and we're trying to make this go. One thing I will want to kind of not really caution you about, how many people live on Grandview? Yeah. Okay. So you know the route that you take to get to and from your house. Okay. When this starts to happen and the landscaping comes, you know what a big potbelly truck looks like with a lot of granite in it? Well, in the bid that Gary has put together, right, there's a pit, a granite pit that we're going to get the granite from out near Lake Pleasant. And we'll be experiencing those trucks that are coming in to Meeker and down into the golf course. There'll be 1,700 of those trucks coming with granite. So it's a lot of, we're covering 40 plus acres.
Yeah, let me add to that. So the contractor, like these contractors, they realize you guys have residents. You know, there's that, they're gonna have to have dust control permits, you know, for fugitive dust. They're gonna be responsible for that. You know, I know that's a big issue. You know, we've never had a problem with someone saying, hey, you know, I'm getting dust. You know, they're on it, right? Because they don't want the phone call to Department of Environmental Quality is not a good phone call. So they're going to be very good about that. You know, and these guys, that fine for them is huge. So those guys are going to be pretty good about that. So it'll be, you know, there'll be a big excavator out there behind your house, you know, putting in that main line, you know, and then the guys doing the landscape work. But, you know, most of those guys, like because one, I thank you all for coming. I'm glad it was a lot of residents, right? So I'm to your point, I hope there'll be more. We may have to, Todd, even add a few more of these, right? If we're getting the momentum rolling to hear about this, you know, because you know, I've done enough projects around the country where communication's key. Like if we can tell the right story and tell you guys what's really happening, it goes a long ways. And to be, you know, receptive to your comments, which we are, we're not, until it's in the ground, we can make changes. Like we can make modifications. So we're a year, the landscape portion is not going to start till June. So we've got time to make some tweaks here and there. So, you know, it's easier for us to do it now than when we're staking. Or when you come back, you know, in the fall and be like, oh, whoa, I didn't expect that. So, you know, so yeah, if you know, I'll help Todd brainstorm how we can be receptive to better comments, because, you know, some people may want a tree, and, you know, some don't, and we're good. So, I mean, we're trying, this water thing's major, and they're not joking around. I mean, you know, for the longest time, they don't know in the state, almost every golf course that I'm working on right now with the state, what the state has on record for what they have for turf and what they actually have are two different things. We're actually right now in the process of verifying all of our turf areas in Sun City West for the state. And I mean, I'm talking 60 acres off. I'm not talking an acre off. I'm talking 60 acres. So, you know, we're all trying to do our best to manage this water thing. It's a real thing. They care. They're going after it. They've hired 2 guys that all they're doing is verifying golf course acreages right now. I've got a good rapport with him, so it's going well. But it's kind of, you know, these guys are setting the rule and the law, and they have no clue what's even out here. I mean, we use 1.9%, and they think we have more turf than we actually have. So, you know, it's a challenge, but it's real. So, and you guys you don't have the 200-acre golf course. That one's a doozer. So, and then, you know, you got those big old courses like McCormick Ranch and Gainey Ranch, you know, that are massive turf golf courses. You know, you got the old Phoenix Country Club, Arizona Country Club, you know, those old core Mesa Country Club, that are those old core golf courses with all that turf. I mean, those golf courses really change. When you take a core golf course like Arizona Country Club that's just, you know, a square block and it's all turf, there's not a lot of room to take out, you know, 60 acres of turf and not significantly impact play. So we're trying. So I think that's it.